Good evening and welcome to the PACC Report. I'm Tom Pearson. Tonight, we visit the Ombudsman, Mr. Moran in York Region, as he weighs in on secret meetings and the new Sunshine Law Handbook. Have you seen it yet? One given to all the municipalities across Ontario. Let's see what Mr. Moran has to say.
For these cases to be referred to. So whenever there's a municipality that has an investigation being done, how do you get a copy of the report? How do you compare them with the others? Some people post them online, some people just table them to council and then you never see it again. So when you deal with the Ombudsman's office, we post everything online. Everything is out there, it's signed, it's open to scrutiny. So it doesn't produce a very healthy level of oversight when it can vary so dramatically from one municipality to the other municipality. I don't necessarily oppose the ability for municipalities to opt out, but I think there should be some consistency in the work product, and that's why I liked Bill 8's provision that allowed us to oversee these private investigators, because then we would have been able to hold their feet to the fire. These people need to be trained. They need to know what they're doing. They need to operate at arm's length. In the city of Brighton, for example, one of the hand-picked conflict of interest commissioners or integrity commissioners, somebody started one of his report by saying everybody knows what this complaint is about, and then proceeded to give his conclusion. Well, nobody knew what the complaint was about. So in terms of the consistency of the work product, I don't think the public interest is being served by the current system, which allows hand-picked, friendly, more likely to be a lapdog than a watchdog, private investigator to dabble in and dabble out, often within a cloak of secrecy themselves.
With York Region recently holding a retreat that cost taxpayers $15,000, Mr. Moran certainly had something to weigh in on that subject.
Here and anybody else could weigh in on this, because I don't know exactly where we are with this in Ontario. I'm Canadian, but I spent some of my career working in the United States, and in Illinois they were working towards something, and that's a corrupt state, by the way, but they were working toward transparency with budgets, and it was kind of every dime online all the time. And it was that, with the exception of obvious information like the names and photos of undercover police officers or something like that, literally everything, every dime, every nickel coming in, going out would be online. It's on computers in a government office, so just put it online. Maybe I don't understand it, but maybe you do, maybe a reporter does, and it gives the opportunity then to have somebody say, this budget here doesn't make any sense. How are we doing in that regard in Ontario?
We're not doing very good at all. One of the reasons why we're not doing very good is that there's no penalty, there's no consequence for a councillor who breaches the law. So let's just back up here. I was a law professor part-time for many, many years, and so let me put that hat back on and let me tell you a little bit about the Sunshine Law that's supposed to apply to council. Because one of the reasons about half the municipalities have opted out of Ombudsman oversight was because, well, that's so complicated. How could he possibly understand the intricacies of municipal law? He's just a mere mortal. He's not one of us. So let me just give you a little sketch of the provision of the Sunshine Law that applies to these meetings. First of all, apart from one example, which is the consideration of freedom of information requests, let's put this aside. There is no obligation on City Council to ever meet in private, in secret. There's not one provision in the Act. The Act says City Council may, not shall, but may meet in secret in a number of situations. One of them is for the purpose of education. So the purpose of education is meant to apply, councillors take computer lessons. The public doesn't have to be there to watch, right? It's not city business. So of course, it would be cumbersome to have these meetings open to the public. This is how you turn on your computer. This is how you open your word processor. Another example would be to brief council members on HR policies. You know, this is harassment, this is sexual harassment, this is how, you know, you hire people, fire them. Again, education. So the Sunshine Act, Sunshine Law, this is how the legislation applies. These are all examples of legislation. But the thrust of the legislation is to say to council, throw your doors open, just like the provincial and federal parliaments. But what we've seen across Ontario is council abuses these exceptions, and they take something that's meant to deal with a very narrow circumstance, allow council to use their discretion if those circumstances are there. They never have to meet secretly, but it's there to give them that authority. They take it and they expand it. It becomes like an elastic band. So let's come back to home here. I've told you what the law says, but let's apply it to what just happened at this retreat of the York Regional Council. So this is exactly the notice of meeting of council. So this is not from the newspaper. This is precisely what they issued to the public as to why they would have a $15,000 retreat to discuss budgets and visions and outlines. So the reason given is, the reason it is for, they've invoked the education provision and said the meeting will be to educate members of regional council on challenges and opportunities for this term of council. Does that sound like computer lessons, HR policies? It sounds like city business.
A former Newmarket councillor also weighed in.
Ruthlessly attacked. I mean, those are the ones who are the most outspoken are the ones who are attacked, and you've got to think about that. That is the reason, is because they don't want to upset the apple cart. And we need political activists to upset the apple cart. We absolutely need that. I can't emphasize that enough. In some cases, bureaucrats themselves lend a hand when a councillor finds themselves offside. I've seen the Newmarket CEO actually intervene to make certain to make sure that certain evidence was not given to an integrity commissioner about a complaint that somebody put forward, and half of the material was not given to that integrity commissioner. So when you have a bureaucracy protecting that kind of mentality we see in office, we're in big trouble.
It's not just a problem in Ontario either.
Talking about those little envelopes that you put under the, that used to slide to the media under the doors, that was probably our worst nightmare, right? And it really is a shame that sometimes it has to come to that. I know in Alberta, we were the last province, and the only province at the time, the last province to enact whistleblower legislation. Before that, there was none. There was absolutely none. There was no one that a public servant could go to blow the whistle. Everything in Alberta was done. Let me just give you an example in the municipal level. And first of all, let me say again that kudos to Mr. Moran for championing this bill through, because when you don't have something like this to protect you, you don't realize like what you're missing, right? I come from Alberta. Alberta, when I first started, was given a D grading for its freedom of information and privacy. They ranked lower in the world than Angola. Yeah, no kidding. So the premier that I had served under had really wanted to transform the way that open government was conducted in the province. So she had established the Ministry of Accountability and Transparency and charged us.
How ironic.
Yeah. I know. That's another story.
Was that the organization that let us know about the little palace she was building for herself?
We weren't privy to that one. We could talk about that after. No, I was joking. But anyway, some of the good measures that office did was a full review and an overhaul of the Freedom of Information Act in Alberta, as well as establishing the whistleblower legislation and also enacting a sunshine list, the first sunshine list ever to occur within the province of Alberta. So I'm just giving you an example about how good you actually have it here compared to some other places as well. So in terms of the whistleblower, we actually based a lot of it on other provinces, including Ontario. So what we did was we had established a arm's length arbitrator. So it was an arm's length officer, which was the public interest commissioner, and who would oversee all the complaints. So So just to give you an example of what is currently going on in Alberta is we don't have an ombudsman that handles municipal complaints. The ombudsman does not cover municipalities, does not cover school boards, does not cover universities. It covers long-term health facilities, hospitals, and provincial employees and provincial institutions. So what we did instead was enact a whistleblower to cover the.
Saying there comes a time when you want to know that you've got teeth behind you that say this person on our council is not acting appropriately.
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point. We've been asking for oversight in municipalities, universities, and school boards for 40 years. It's just arrived now, finally, after 40 years, successive ombudsman after ombudsman, governments after governments. So it may seem odd for some people to say, well, now you don't want to do the cases, you want them to be resolved locally. But I think I don't want to give an opportunity for municipalities to simply wash their hands of fixing their own problems. So the first pit stop should be municipalities, just as in the provincial government. The first opportunity to fix a problem lies with the province. If they don't do it, then we step in. And the ombudsman should be a person of last resort, not like a 911 phone call. Otherwise, it will become unmanageable, and we're taking municipalities off the hook. They need to be on the hook for the ethical decisions that they make. And I think it'll be very important going down that path that they acknowledge that they have a role to play in resolving problems raised by their citizens, as opposed to all these stratagems and tactics of charging for complaints, pushing them back, defying the law. We've been seeing a lot of that. Now it's time to take it seriously. Yes, we're the new sheriff in town, but we want to be able to give you an opportunity to fix the problem first. You know, you may be aware of the investigation we're doing on Hydro One. Well, there were 200 complaints one year. The complaints jacked up to 647 the next. I'm like, okay, triple since last year. I took a look at the issue, said, okay, we need to dig in and have a look at what's going on, triple the complaints. Well, as I'm talking to you today, since we announced the investigation exactly 1 year ago today, we're now dealing with just under 10,000 complaints. Why? Because these are people that had lost faith in the system to deal with its own issues. So they stopped complaining. When we announced the investigation, it's like, wow, somebody's listening now. Let's open up and tell them what the problem is. So I think municipalities have to do the same thing. They have to be ready to face reality and provide that service to the public. And failing that, yes, we will step to the plate.
I didn't expect much from my question, but I thought I'd ask it anyway, having been frustrated through the process in York Region myself. Personally, having co-written York Region's social audit behind the masks and having a tough time getting regional council to actually use the audit. Are homeless men is a serious issue in York Region, one I've tried to get into the news and on the front pages for a number of years without much luck. We had in York Region a editor-in-chief who's also on the board for the women's shelter. It's been tough to get men's shelter issues in the media. Hopefully things are going to change. But guys like Mr. Moran, the Ombudsman of Ontario, help shake things up. I'm Tom Pearson. Until next time, this has been the PACC Report. Next time on the PACC Report, stroll and roll to freedom. Dan Fillion's mission to have his ODSP rates raised. When he went and visited the MPP for the area, he arrived with no shoes because he couldn't afford any. He's tired of having to beg and borrow just to get out the door. I'm Tom Pearson. Until next time, this is the PACC Report. I'll see you on the streets. Good afternoon, I'm Thompson Williams back once again, this time reporting to you live from the 26th precinct of Toronto Metro Police. I've been arrested for not for tobogganing as I first had thought, but apparently while coming down the hill and yelling "Yee-haw!" they mistakenly thought I was yelling jihad and inciting some kind of terrorist activity. So they've arrested me until such time as I can prove that this is not what I was doing. And apparently they can hold me up to a full year until I prove otherwise. I'm Dawson Williams, stuck in North America. Mummy. Until next time, I'll see you, hopefully, one day, out there.